Today we will talk about the drive block in the AxeFx2. I think if you are a fan of high-gain guitar sounds like me, sooner or later you will come to the point where you want to get more saturation out of an amp, and or you want to kill some flubbiness in the bass or some harshness in the top end. And for that, many people are using a drive pedal in front of an amp, and this is working with analog gear, with real amps, but of course it's also working with modeling amps. And of course you can address different things with a drive block in front of the amp, but if you want to get more gain, which is I think typical when people are using a drive block, or if you want to kill flubbiness in the bass, which is also a problem that occurs very often, I think, then you have to find out the right drive block for that for that purpose. And I opened the AxeFx2 editor here. As you can see, this is my patch. You hear it in the beginning. By the way, today I'm using my new Harley Benton Fusion guitar HSH configuration with a beautiful roasted maple fretboard, roasted maple neck, and Roswell humbuckers, Wilkinson 2-point tremolo, and 5-way toggle, whatever. So back to the preset. As you can see here, I'm using the Atomica High amp model, and I don't want to dive into the other blocks except the cap. Maybe I can show you. I'm using the IR Uber V30 by Red Wires, which is one of my favorite IRs in the AxeFx2. And also I use the D-phase parameter set around here 5.56. That is something I definitely recommend to try out. It's very powerful and it's killing some phasing issues which are occurring in most of the IRs, in my opinion. The amp is set, as you can see here, I'm a little bit EQing the tone stack of the amp, and also I'm using quite high input drive. Turn off the blocks in front of the amps so you can hear the amp sound. So as you can hear, it's basically a crunchy Marshall-like tone, and of course, if you add some drive in front of the amp, then you lose some of the dynamics which the amp has, and that has something to do with also in the real world, the drive pedals there don't react that that dynamical to your playing, because usually they're maybe solid state, and the amp, most of the high-gain amps, they're tube amps, and they're acting more or less dynamical to your playing. Of course, some amps more than others, especially the Friedman amp, but also here this Atomica High amp model, as you can hear. If I'm playing very light, then it's almost cleanish, but you get a full crunch sound when you're picking harder. And if you add the drive block in front of the amp, then you lose a lot of these dynamics. As you can hear now, also I'm very, very light now, but it's still very distorted. So that is something you have to keep in mind, and it's also something where I am struggling always if I'm boosting an amp, because some amps, especially the Friedman models, I like their dynamics, and But if I cannot get a decent sound out of an amp without a drive block, well then I use one. Another thing is also that you can boost your amp with a parametric EQ. That is something which I also like to do. As you can see here, I have a parametric EQ at the beginning of the chain, but here I'm basically shaping my overall guitar signal. Of course, I'm boosting the level, but also I'm cutting highs, as you can see here, at about 2K, and also I'm cutting lows at about 200 Hertz. And that is something which I usually use when I have pickups which don't work that well with an amp. So in this case, I'm using the Roswell pickups, which are a little bit harsh. And to address this, I use a high cut here. If I turn off the parametric EQ, well, that is the sound with the parametric EQ turned on. If I turn it off, of course, then it reduces the overall level of the guitar about 7 dB. And the result is that it's not that saturated, but also it has a little bit more top end. But okay, I'll leave it turned off now, because we want to focus on the drive block. In the drive block, as you can see now, I'm selecting the good old Tube Screamer 808. It's an overdrive, and when boosting an amp, most people are setting the level to max, as you can see here, and the drive to 0. That is something which doesn't work with every pedal. It depends on the pedal. Some pedals, they don't have output if you set the drive to 0. But with the Tube Screamer kind of pedals, it's definitely the way to go. Start with the drive at 0, level to max, and also, of course, the mix. You can experiment with that. But in most cases, I set it also to 100%. That means basically that none of the dry guitar signal is going straight to the amp. It's all passing the drive block. As you can see here, the most important thing about the drive blocks is that they, of course, they all have their certain characteristic sound, but most of them, they're pushing some frequencies in the mid-range, and especially this 808 non-modified, it's pushing only a very narrow frequency range, as you can see here, between 712 Hz and 880 Hz, which is not much. It's only maybe about 170 Hz. So he's producing maybe a spike there. If I turn off the amp, maybe you can hear it. Should sound very honky. So just the drive block sounds like that. If I turn it off, so you hear maybe this honkiness which this drive block produces, and that is something I definitely recommend to have an eye on, because this is changing from depending on the effect type you are selecting. For example, the modified 808, they changed these frequencies, and this is pushing a wider frequency range. As you can see here, between 400 and 2.5K. Results, of course, a more saturation, but also you will get a lot of the lower mid-range boosted, and also a lot of the higher frequencies boosted, and that is something which is not always wanted. That is because usually you want to get more saturation out of the amp, but you don't want your tone to get floppy or harsh. That is also one of the reasons why people use drive blocks, in my opinion, because these drive blocks, they're mostly pushing the mids, and also only certain mids, which are good for pushing the amp into saturation, but they don't push these lower and high frequencies. For example, if you are using the overall boost in the amp block, or the input trim, the overall guitar signal is boosted. I don't know about the boost function, maybe this is depending on the amp model, but if you boost the overall guitar signal with the input trim, then you get these unwanted flubbiness in the bass, because also bass frequencies and also the top end is boosted equally. Of course you get more saturation, but you get a tone which is not usable. So that is the reason why many people like to use the drive blocks, because these low and high frequencies are not addressed. Of course you can do this also with the parametric EQ, as you can see here, and you can cut the lows and highs. This is also something which I'm using a lot because it's more flexible than a drive block. But anyway, with some amps, some drive models seem to work very well. For example, the 808 original is working very well with maybe rectifiers, or also with the PV6505, or also with this amp. In fact, this 808 is working with many amps, I think, because it's just pushing the very small bandwidth. So we can have a look at the advanced parameters, but as you can see here, there are not that many, and also I don't change anything here usually. Of course, what I do use sometimes is if I want to boost certain other frequencies, I'm using here the additional equalizer, and it's very flexible. As you can see, you can choose maybe if you want to have some more pitch of the note. Maybe you could raise the 400 Hertz. Might be good for lead sounds. Let's see what that does. Might be a little bit too much, but so that is something you can try out. But in my opinion, the sound with these stock settings of the 808 and the Atomica is working very well. Another thing is, if you want to get more saturation out of the amp, you could of course raise the drive a little bit. I don't recommend to raise it too much, because then it might get floppy. And also the drive coming from the drive block is not that harmonic like from the simulated tube distortion in the amp. But it helps to get more saturation, and in some situations I'm using the drive also a little bit. Get more grit thing. So this could work really well in this situation. Well, we can have a look at some other drive models which I found out to work very well. For example, the full tone overdrive. That is something which is, in my opinion, pushing, or the characteristic of this pedal is a little bit more around the lower mid frequencies. So in other words, if you want to push these lower frequencies, then usually I'm using the full tone overdrive. Let's hear how that sounds. It's a little bit bass heavy in this with this amp setting. So if I would use the full tone OD, I've definitely reduced some bass frequencies, or lower mids maybe, after the amp. Sounds also pretty well. But with this pedal, I found the distortion not so tight here, so I would set it to 0 again. You can hear if I raise it, it sounds a little bit buzzy, or however you would call that. So here you have to be careful with the drive. Also, you can see here, of course, the low cut is around 340 Hertz, and with the 808 before it was, if you remember, about 700. So, of course, here are more lower mid-range frequencies addressed. And also the overall characteristic of the pedal is more in the lower mid-range. But with some amps it seems to work better. And also, I think in the AxeFx2 I found this working better with the Atomica High amp model. But anyway, I like the sound, so I will save it. As you can see here, you have quite a lot of these drive models, and I didn't try out them all, but I think the Super OG is also something. Maybe it's modeling a Boss overdrive. As you can see here, it's from 700 to 1K. It's a little bit, might be a little bit similar to the Tube Screamer. But as you can hear, it's also addressing a little bit of the higher frequencies. And also the output seems to be not that high because we don't have that much saturation. So in this case, maybe you should raise the drive a little bit more. And the beautiful thing with the AxeFx is, of course, you can reduce the high cut a little bit, like maybe with the 808, around 880 Hertz. By the way, I found these frequencies between 700 and 900 Hertz, they seem to work very well if you boost these frequencies when using an amp with a tone stack which is similar to Marshall amps, like this Atomica High amp. But as you can hear, maybe, although we are boosting almost the same frequency range here, or at least we set the low cut and high cut similar, the overall sound is a little bit different than with the 808. So they all of these models, they do have their own characteristic sound. And another thing which I found out very work very well with the lead tones is the mid boost. As you can see here, it's a wide frequency range which is addressed. But also this this pedal doesn't have a lot of output, so here you can go a little bit more higher with the drive. And here I would reduce the brightness of the amp a little bit. So that was also working very well. Let's see, another one which I use quite a lot was, I think, the Ruckus. I didn't use the AxeFx2 a lot recently, so maybe I forgot the name. But was it some of these Sur medals, maybe the Riot or something, which is this modeling? I don't know. Here is also starting around 700 Hertz, as you can see. So the lows are cut, but it goes very far into the higher frequencies. Let's raise the drive. A little bit too much. I think with the soar pedals, they sound very harmonic, and also with a clean amp you can get good results, so I will try to reduce the drive here. Let's see what that does. That sounds also very nice to me. I have to save it. Well, save it here. Okay. So maybe I should rename it. So I hope this helps you to get the best results with the drive block, and I think if you understand how to use these things, the drive block is very powerful. And of course, if you are after the most dynamic sound, then I would definitely recommend to not use a drive block, and instead you can use maybe some boosting with a parametric EQ or just the raw amp. But if you are after high gain tones, maybe the drive block is a very powerful tool, and well, I hope you will get good results with it. Please post your comments below, subscribe to the channel if you like it, and yeah, see you soon. Bye!